Welcome to the Pocket. I am your host, Scooter, and here for you guys today, I'll be giving you my Week 18 score predictions. Now, the main purpose of this video is to give you guys my take on the money line, the spread, and the over-under for every game that's happening this week. But also, this is the last week of the regular season, so last regular season score predictions video. I know, very sad, but I will also be giving you guys the playoff context of each game, whether it matters for that or not. Are we resting starters? And things of that nature. So without further ado, let's get right into it. So the first games this week are actually going to take place on Saturday. We're going to have our AFC North teams facing off, and kicking it off is going to be the Cleveland Browns at the Baltimore Ravens. In this game, the Ravens are favored by 18.5 points. Probably the biggest spread we've seen all year, and the biggest one I can remember in such a long time. The over-under is 41.5, which really isn't too big, but that just shows you how much they're taking it away from DTR. The Browns starting quarterback this game, he's been pretty bad this year. I mean, you like to root for a guy, but he's not been anywhere near what Jameis has been. Even though Jameis was a turnover machine, at least he could throw some touchdowns. I think DTR has one touchdown pass on the season. Last week, they put up like 3 points against the Dolphins, and they really did not look good. So going up against the Ravens this week, I mean, I don't think anyone's expecting it to be any different. The Ravens are going to dominate them. I chose the score to be Ravens 35-13. I do think the Browns can score some garbage time points. They didn't get any last week against the Dolphins, but at the Ravens pull their starters at the half, all they got to do is win, because if they lose and the Steelers win, then the Steelers would jump them, I believe. But very unlikely. So like I said, I'm taking the Ravens to win 35-13. That's going to be Ravens to cover minus 18.5. And that's going to be over 41.5. Up next, we have the Cincinnati Bengals at the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, this game has pretty major playoff implications for both teams, more so for the Bengals, who are favored by 2 in this game, and there's an over-under of 48. So the Bengals need to win, and they also need the Broncos to lose in order for them to make the playoffs. So they're going to be playing hard. They need to win this game just to have any chance of making the playoffs. The Steelers are already locked into the playoffs. However, the Ravens currently own the 3rd seed, and the Steelers are the 5 seed, which is ahead of the Chargers, who currently share the same record of 10-6 with them. So what will happen is, if the Steelers win and the Ravens lose, then they will have a tied division record and they will have a tied regular season record, and it'll go further down into the tiebreakers to determine who wins the division. Now, like I said, for the Bengals, they just need to win and they need the Broncos to lose. So there's only so much that goes into that. But this is going to be a competitive game on both sides. Not to mention the Steelers really haven't looked great recently, and I think they would like to catch their feet, maybe regain some of that fire they had last time they played the Bengals. However, I do think the Bengals are going to win this game. I have them winning 26-23, so that would be Bengals -2 and over 48. Like I said, it's a must-win for this Bengals team. And even if the Steelers don't win, I think they will be satisfied with competing with them. They've been losing games, but not just losing them. They've been out of reach, right? They haven't been hanging in there. And it's not been a good look heading into the playoffs. So if they can just compete with this Bengals team that is oh so desperate and oh so dangerous as they need to get into the playoffs, then I think they'd be satisfied with that. Like I said, it should be close, and it is at Pittsburgh, but I'm going to take the Bengals in this one. And now moving on to our Sunday games. And kicking it off for this video, we're going to talk about the Saints at the Buccaneers. So this has playoff implications. Really, the only thing is, if the Buccaneers lose, then they chance the Falcons being able to rip the division away from them. And in that case, the Buccaneers, would miss the playoffs. But the thing is, in this game, they're favored by 13.5 points, and there's an over-under of 43. So obviously there's a similar level of confidence that the Bucs will beat this Saints team, kind of like the Ravens and the Ravens and the Browns, right? The Browns are starting DTR. The Saints are starting Spencer Rattler. Their team has fallen apart all the way through the entire year. They've lost guys, and now they're at this point where they're a bottom feeder. They're fairly competitive, and the Buccaneers have failed to show up in a couple games they should have won. Take, for instance, the Cowboys game that wasn't too long ago, that they just randomly had that bad game, right? So I don't see that happening here. I don't think the Saints have the upside on offense. Even if the Buccaneers were to start off slow and maybe turn the ball over, I don't think the Saints can capitalize. So I am going to take the Buccaneers to win this game 28-14. So I have them covering -13.5, and I have that being under 43.5. Now, this next game has no playoff implications, really. Giants, who are at the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, the Eagles have clinched that 2 seed. They are not going to lose it, whether they win or lose. So there is no reason for them to play their starters. They're 13-3. Either the Lions or Vikings are going to be 15-2, so they can't get the 1 seed. But the Rams are 10-6, and they can't really jump the Eagles either. So they're resting their starters as well. Unfortunately for the Giants, who won last week after holding the number 1 overall pick for just a couple hours, they might have another opportunity to win this game. And I understand everyone talking about the philosophy of tanking, the morality. Is it right or wrong? I don't care at this point. We don't need to win this game. We don't need to win this game. We won't get anything out of it. Even if you do win, what are you pulling away saying that you beat the Eagles backups? I mean, come on. And just one more note. This year, we were coming off a year where we had a couple culture wins the year before, right? Where were those? Those didn't help us at all this year. So I'm really done hearing about these culture win things because I said it in the Giants reaction video. They don't help us. But anyway, the Eagles are going to, I honestly think they may intentionally try to lose this game just to decrease the Giants draft stock, right? Because if we're like, hey, if we could set the Giants back another 5 years, why wouldn't we, right? And honestly, it's a smart move. It's a little shady, right? But I could see him doing it. The Eagles are favored by 3 in this game, and there's a 37.5 point over under. Now, I believe not only are they resting their starters, but I believe they are also resting Kenny Pickett. Yes, Jalen Hurts and Kenny Pickett will both be resting. So is that Tanner McKee who's going to be starting for them? I believe it is. Now, I mentioned before how seems like the Eagles have no real interest in winning this game. And even though the Giants did win last week, I would imagine from ownership, they would say, come on, we don't need to win this game. Nonetheless, though, I am going to take the Eagles to win this game. They got backups on their team that are going to want to win the game as well. And I don't think that they are going to throw it. And like I said, honestly, I think the Giants might try to throw this one a little bit too. I'm going to take the Eagles to win 20-16. So that's Eagles -3, and that's under 37.5. Now up next, this game has no real playoff implications. We have the Chicago Bears at the Green Bay Packers. The Packers are 10-point favorites, and there's a 41-point over-under. So as I stated, the Packers are actually locked in as the 7 seed right now. And if the Commanders lose, then the Packers can jump them if they win this game, right? So there is somewhat of a playoff implication here, but they can't rise any higher than 6. So the difference there is instead of playing the Eagles in the first round, they would play the Rams. I'd much rather play the Rams, so they're definitely going to try to win this game. I don't believe the Commanders game happens first either, so it's not like they're going to know before the game starts. So now that you guys have the context, let me tell you what I think is going to happen. I think the Packers will win this game, but I don't think it's going to be that easy. I mentioned it earlier, the second time the Bears played the Lions, that I thought maybe the Bears are going to try to give it one last hoorah before their season's pretty much over, because who really cares what you do for the rest of the year? We want to see what you do against the Lions, right? Your division opponent that's currently dominating, that you're going to have to exceed if you want any hope at a Super Bowl. So you sort of have a similar idea here. Every team in the Bears division is a good team that you would be happy to beat going into the next season. So I do think the Packers will win, but I think the Bears are going to cover. So I have the Packers winning 24-16. That would be Chicago +10 and under 41. Like I said, I do think the Packers are going to win this game pretty handedly. I do think the Bears are going to fight, though, right? It's the last game of the season. I think Caleb Williams might have a couple tricks left up his sleeve to avoid the pass rush that gets there in less than 2 seconds. But at the same time, Green Bay they're angry after last week, right? I'm not going to say embarrassed because they did come back and allow it to be a 2-point game, but they were dominated for most of the game by the Vikings. So they're ready to take out their frustration and get back onto their feet heading into the playoffs. I'm taking them to win 24-16. Like I said, Bears +10 and under 41. Up next, we have the Bills traveling to New England to take on the Patriots. In this game, the Bills, like other teams, have already have their playoff situation figured out. They're 13-3 as the 2 seed. The Chiefs are 15-1 and the Ravens are 11-5. So there's a 2-win gap between the teams above and below them. So it doesn't really matter to them what happens in this game. But it has been reported that Josh Allen will play, but Trubisky will start the majority of the game. So it looks like they're going to have their starters go out there for a little bit. Something I said in the power rankings video, I think it's a good idea to get your starters out there, even if it's for a drive or two, and then get the backups in there, right? Just so your starters have to continuously go through the week and continue to practice and be ready to go out there. And it takes away any risk of them getting complacent. Now, depending on what team you are and how confident you are in them and, their level of focus, have they been here before? You can go either way with that, but I only really see one or two teams that have that luxury. So the Bills are 2-point favorites in this game. They were like 2-score favorites last time. So it is taken into account by Vegas that the Bills will be sort of nerfed and handicapped in this game. And there's also 38-point over under. So it seems like they also agree this will be bad for the offense. But Trubisky's not that bad of a backup, especially, sitting behind Allen with the Bills roster. They're pretty deep, right? At wide receiver, they're deep. They got Amari Cooper, Keon Coleman, Mac Hollins, Shakir, and Curtis Samuel, right? So that's 5 dudes. A bunch of dudes are going to be excited to get out there. And then running back, they drafted a rookie, Ray Davis. So if James Cook is going to sit, then he's going to get a large majority of the workload. And Ty Johnson, who's been involved in the receiving game this year a lot and a little bit on the ground, he should also be heavily involved. So I don't really think that this game is going to be it's tough, right? Because you don't really know how long Josh Allen and the starters are going to be out there, but I'm going to assume it's going to be enough for them to win. But I actually have the Patriots perhaps backdoor covering, right? Because say the Bills take a commanding lead in the first half, they pull the starters, Patriots slowly start working their way back, and then eventually they get themselves into a position where maybe they can win with a 2-point conversion or something, but they don't get it. And that would be my prediction. The Bills win 21-20, where the Patriots backdoor score a touchdown, and then they go for 2 to just try to get a win, and then they fail to do so. So, like I said, even though they're playing their backups, the Bills are a Super Bowl caliber team. I would expect them to beat a bottom feeder even with their backups. Like I said, the way the roster is constructed, they're pretty deep. So I'm not very concerned that they will lose this game. But if they do, hey, don't be surprised because you don't know when they're pulling these starters. Up next, we have a game that does have some playoff implications, at least for one of the teams. We have the Panthers at the Falcons. So the Panthers have been eliminated for quite a while, but the Falcons are 8-8 and they are still alive. The only way they can make it in is by winning their division. Now the Bucs are 9-7. They have a 1-game lead and they currently hold the division and they're locked in as the 4 seed if they win. But if they lose and the Falcons win, then the Falcons will claim the division. They swept the Buccaneers earlier this season, which is going to come in handy because if they win this game and the Bucs somehow lose to the Saints, then, hey, you just got a free playoff berth for your rookie quarterback. The Panthers have been scrappy at points here and there later in the season, after the Munich game against the Giants, but the Falcons really need this one. I've been here before talking about the Colts and the Giants, and this is a divisional matchup, so maybe it gets a little bit more hairy, but unless if the Falcons completely sell, then I don't see them losing this game. I mean, it is week 18 and crazy things are going to happen, but come on, Penix, you got the roster. I know Bryce Young has, been in the league longer and was drafted higher, but I think with the surrounding cast he has, he should be able to take advantage of this poor Panthers defense and, keep the lead away from them. So I have the Falcons winning this game 30-20. So that would be Atlanta -8 over 48. Moving on, our next game is the Commanders at the Cowboys. So this does have some playoff implications. If the Commanders lose and the Packers win, then the Commanders will fall to the 7 seed and play the Eagles in the first round rather than the Rams. The Cowboys did beat the Commanders earlier this year. Now they were healthier. They were sort of, that scrappy team that was playing spoiler, but the Commanders have caught their feet since then. They pulled off a couple impressive wins against the Eagles backup Kenny Pickett, but it was an impressive comeback. And then last week against the Falcons in overtime. So although Washington got beat pretty badly last time, I think they're going to come out with the win this time. They're going to make some adjustments. The Cowboys, I think they're sort of checked out on the season as well. So whether it's the Commanders, coming up with a better game plan, or it's the Cowboys, just kind of, mailing this one in, then I think the Commanders are going to win. They're 5.5-point favorites. I'm going to have them covering and winning 26-20, which is also going to be over 44. Moving on, this game is not really involved in the playoffs, but it has got some interesting qualities to it. We have the Texans at the Titans. Now, when I checked earlier today, the Titans were for some reason 1.5 point favorites, and there was an over under of 37. I don't really understand what that was about. I believe the line has moved to Houston -1 or Houston -1.5, something like that. But I don't really understand that. If it's still Tennessee, favored, I would just take Houston spread, whatever it is. Um, I don't believe the Texans are resting their starters either. So I don't know where this is coming from. I don't know what they know. What does Vegas know? I don't know. We'll never find out. But Houston's been really bad recently. They got embarrassed by the Ravens last week. They couldn't even score a field goal or a touchdown on offense. Their only points came from a safety. And last time this Houston team played the Titans, they lost in a shootout. So it's like, whoa, this game actually, I do sort of understand what Vegas is saying, but I still would not favor the Titans to win. Now, the Titans might very well be tanking. They know that they're going to need a quarterback. It's them, it's the Browns and the Raiders who really need a quarterback. And although, the whole division's bad and you could kind of say, hey, we're not as bad as the Jaguars or whatever, I think in the end of the day, you just want to prioritize your future. And I think Houston's going to catch their feet this time heading into the playoffs, and they're going to win 21-17. So a little bit of a different game script, but that would be Houston plus 1.5 if that's even still what the line is, and that would be over 37. Up next, we have the rest of the AFC South, and that's going to be the Jaguars at the Indianapolis Colts. The Colts are favored by 5, and there's a 44-point over-under. Now, last week, the Colts played the Giants. It was a must-win game for them. They had to win to keep their playoff hopes alive, and they let up 45 points to a Giants team that had the lowest scoring offense for the entire year at like 14 points per game. One of the most disappointing weeks for a team that I can remember in recent memory. But this Jaguar, I mean, they should be able to beat the Jaguars, right? I mean, the divisional opponent, you just blew them out not too long ago. And even though your season's over, I think you want to end it on a high note because it's not like you're going to change your draft position that much. You're not in the top 10. So I'm talking about the Colts here, and I think they're going to win 27-20. That's Indianapolis -5 over 44. Like I said, they blew them out a few weeks ago, so I think it's pretty fair for them to cover a 5-point spread. Unless Brian Thomas Jr. pulls what Malik Neighbors did, then I don't really see Jacksonville keeping up with this Colts offense. I believe AR is going to be back, but if he's not, even still, I trust Flacco more than I do the Jaguars. Up next, this is going to be one of the most important games of the week. I mentioned earlier that the Bengals needed to win and they needed one other team to lose. That team is playing in this game. We have the Chiefs at the Denver Broncos. Now, the Broncos are 10.5-point favorites, and there's a 40-point over-under. What? Is Vegas stupid? Are they favoring the Broncos over the Chiefs? Relax. The Chiefs are 15-1, and as I stated earlier in the video, they're 2 games ahead of the Bills, who are the 2 seed. There's no way for the Bills to catch them, so the Chiefs have clinched the 1 seed. They don't need to play their starters, and I don't think they're even going to play them for a half. I did say that they get a little bit of they get to be an exception to the rule. But this Broncos team is in the hunt currently at 9-7, but they are listed as the 7 seed if things ended today. Now, on their tail, we have the Dolphins and the Bengals at 8-8. And now, if they win, the Dolphins have a 21% chance to make it in, and the Bengals have an 11% chance to make it in. But in the end of the day, let's just look at this game right here. We have the Broncos, who have had a great season but have struggled recently against better teams, playing Carson Wentz leading the Chiefs. Now, a lot of people might think, oh, so take Denver -10.5. They need to win, right? The Chiefs are playing their backup quarterback. Mahomes is out. They're going to be a completely different team. Yes, they are. But Carson Wentz has been sitting and preparing behind Andy Reid, who was the father coach, per se, of Doug Peterson, the guy who got Carson Wentz going in the first place. That's number one. Number two, I mentioned earlier how these backup players, they are playing for a contract next year. They are playing for their livelihood. Don't think Carson Wentz is just going to go out there and roll over. The Chiefs don't care if they win or lose this game. But if they win, it's good for the backups. It's good for the dudes that are, getting mixed in during the playoffs, and it builds their confidence. So let me also remind you the Chiefs were a great team before Patrick Mahomes. They were a consistent playoff team with Alex Smith. Now, I understand Carson Wentz has not accomplished what Alex Smith has in his career, but he's certainly more talented than Alex Smith. And I believe, enough time under a well-run organization like the Chiefs that he can pull off one win against a potential playoff team if things go right for him and the defense still shows up. Now they're benching lots of defensive starters like Karlaftis. I believe Chris Jones is also not playing. Pacheco, Kelsey's not playing. Trent McDuffie. Did I say Karlaftis already? Those guys are not going to be playing. So they will be having an advantage, but I am not going to just write this game off for the Chiefs. Like I said, I don't think it's a layup. In this game, I am going to take the Broncos to win still, but I'm going to have them winning 23-21. So that is Kansas City way plus 10.5. Do an alternate spread if you want to, and over 40 points. Like I said, I think they're going to keep it close and competitive, and unless if the Broncos choke it away, they should still come out with the win. But Carson Wentz, if he gets the ball at the end of the game, don't be surprised if he goes on a game-winning drive and sends them packing because, well, if they win or if they lose and the Bengals and Dolphins also lose, it doesn't matter. But you understand what I'm saying. Carson Wentz with the ball at the end of the game could be a very dangerous thing, and I'm not writing this game off. Up next, we have a game that has some playoff implications. It's the Miami Dolphins at the New York Jets. As I mentioned, the Dolphins and Bengals are 8-8, and they are on the tail of this Broncos team. This Broncos team loses and either Miami or the Bengals win and the other one loses, then they're making it into that playoff spot. So the Dolphins are at the Jets. And I've talked all season about the cold weather theory, right? The cold weather narrative. The Dolphins pick them to lose in every cold game. Now, this might be a little bit different. I'm going to take the under, right? Because I'm going to project their offense to struggle, but I'm still going to take the Dolphins to win 20-17. So Miami -1 and under 39. Why? Scooter, you always say cold weather narrative. Why are you going back against what you said? Well, there are more than one narratives that play into one particular game. And if you are going to go the narrative route rather than like the scheme and all those sorts of things, really diving into the film, if you're going with the narrative route, pick the strongest narrative. And even though the Dolphins cold weather narrative is maybe a top 3 strongest narrative in the NFL, I think the fact that the Jets have just completely given up might be the current strongest narrative in the NFL. They completely disappointed me. I thought they were going to go to the Super Bowl, and they've had the worst possible season I've ever seen of any team with expectations like that. I mean, it's been pretty wild. And then you look at Aaron Rodgers benching himself versus the Bills. It's just such a bad look. They don't look like they can do anything right. None of the players look interested. So even though the Dolphins are terrible in cold weather and this is going to be at the Jets Stadium, I don't think it's going to matter. Give me the Dolphins 20-17. Up next, we have the Chargers at the Raiders. This game does have a little playoff implication. The Chargers are 4.5-point favorites, and there's a 41.5-point over under. So this really should be a much easier win than 4.5 points would suggest. I'm not too sure what's going on there. The Chargers will benefit from winning this game, although the Steelers game will happen first. So if the Steelers lose, then the Chargers will be 10-6 and the Steelers will be 10-7 and they will momentarily jump them. But right now the Chargers are listed below them. So it seems like no matter what, they need to try to win this game so that they versus the Texans instead of the Ravens. So I don't really know where this 4.5-point spread is coming from. I think it should be a lot greater than that. The Raiders did just beat the Saints, but other than that, I mean, come on now. This Chargers team is levels above this Raiders team. I get it's a divisional matchup. It's week 18. Crazy things happen, but I'm not gonna bet for it to happen. All right. This should be an easy win, and they should be rolling going into the playoffs. And you should not even be thinking about playing teams like this in the playoffs, meaning you should dominate them. So I'm taking the Chargers to win 28-17. That's going to be a 11-point spread, but Chargers -4.5 and over 41.5. Up next, we have the Seahawks at the Los Angeles Rams. Now, the Rams are resting their starters in this game. They don't need to win. They can't surpass the Eagles, who are ahead of them. They aren't going to get jumped by the Falcons or the Buccaneers, so they can just lose this game and focus on the wild card round. But the Seahawks are also eliminated from the playoffs. Are they resting their stars? No, they're going to try to end this season with 10 wins. And because of that, they are favored by 6.5, and there's a 38.5 point over under. Obviously, that's coming mostly from the fact that the Rams are resting their starters. I'm going to pick the Seahawks to win this game, 24-21. So I do have the Rams actually covering. I don't think it's just going to be easy for the Rams to just get rolled by the Seahawks team, but I do think that they should win. I'm going over 38.5. I do think there's going to be points scored because McVay's still a good coach. And, like I said, these backups, they're itching to get in there. Now, the Mike McDonald defense might have something to say about that. But, hey, last week of the season, crazier things have happened. So disappointing for the Seahawks team to miss the playoffs at 10 wins. Normally, that's like a guaranteed playoff spot. But you got a 14 win, which could be, it's going to be a 14 win at the 5 seed, an 11 win at the 6 seed, and an 11 win at the 7 seed. And that could be 12. So, it's really too bad for the Seahawks. The NFC, although it's mostly loaded in the NFC North, is very competitive this year. So, a good season for Seattle, but just kind of stinks. You lose one game, and look at what it does to you, right? You're one game out of the playoffs where you would have replaced the Rams. And up next, second to last game, we have the 49ers at the Cardinals. Now, the Cardinals are 4-point favorites. They're home, 42.5 point over under. Should be a fun game, but it's got no playoff relevance, which is really too bad. Both of these teams I thought would be competing for the playoffs. 49ers are 6-10. The Cardinals are like 7-9 or something like that. It's crazy. The NFC has been surprisingly competitive this year, and especially this division in particular. Now, the Cardinals, when they played the 49ers earlier this season and they were away, they actually pulled off an upset, right? They won a pretty amazing game. There was like a block kick return for a touchdown in there. So, there's weird stuff like that you got to be mindful of. But I think the Cardinals are going to win this game, even though I think the 49ers roster overall is better. They're just not the same team this year. It's clear. And I wouldn't put it past them to just kind of lose this game on purpose and say this season's lost. Let's just get our backups in there and, get some reps and get some practice and, leave this season without any torn Achilles in week 18 or torn ACLs. Their season's over, but it's just going to be a fun game. So I can't wait to watch it and, not be worried about what the playoff implications are. It's just sometimes fun to just enjoy a good football game. I don't know though. Tell me if I'm wrong. This game, it's kind of giving me mysterious vibes. I'm not sure if this Arizona -4 is really that realistic. Maybe it should be like -2.5 or even just -1, right? I think this should be a really close game. I did take San Fran +4, and my score prediction is the Cardinals win 23-20. So that's going to be over 42.5. Like I said, San Fran +4. And now finally, we have our last game, which is going to be the last game of the regular season as well. And it is not going to disappoint either. You've seen it in the thumbnail. We have two 14-2 teams, and one of them is going to finish 14-3 and be the 5 seed in the playoffs. Isn't that crazy? We have the Minnesota Vikings at the Detroit Lions. Like I said, both 14-2, competing for the division title and competing for the 1 seed. Now, in this game, the Lions are favored by 2.5, and there's a 56.5 point over under. It's going to be an amazing game. First of all, let me just say that 56.5 point over under means there's going to be points scored in this game. And I would tend to agree. Last time they played, it was like 31-29 or something. And the Lions defense has only gotten more banged up. So I can only imagine that gets even more exaggerated. Now, the Vikings have just been very steady and consistent all year. I've been sort of treating them like they're due for a loss. It hasn't happened. And I'm going to fall into the same trap. I'm taking the Lions to win this game, catch their feet, and get the 1 seed so that they can get healthy going into the divisional round of the playoffs. They desperately need this win. They need it more than the Vikings do, to be honest. The Vikings aren't dealing with nearly as many injuries as this Lions team is. And if they're going to be at full strength and ready to compete for a Super Bowl, then they need that first round bye, and I think they all know it. Or at least it would be nice, right? Now, Minnesota could absolutely win this game, and I will have them covering that 2.5 point spread, and that's what I would bet if I were to bet a spread. Just bet the Vikings. You get points even if they lose. If they lose by 1 or 2, which is very likely, still win the bet. Now, my score prediction is going to be Lions win 31-30. So that's, like I said, over 56.5. It's actually going to be 61. So if you want to do 60.5, you think both teams are going to score over 30 or one team's going to blow them out, then go ahead and do that as well. But in the end of the day, this game is for the 1 seed. It's got playoff implications. It's going to change the trajectory of this season. The outcome of this game will change everything. This is the game of the year. We saw it between the Lions and the Bills, but I don't think I've ever seen this happen before, where we have two teams competing with each other for the 1 seed at the very end of the season as the last game. This is going to be epic, and I cannot wait. So now that I've talked about all the games this week and I have given you some playoff context, let me just give you a little bit more. Let me tell you what the seeds are, what the records are, one more time, just so you know what's gonna be at stake for all these teams. So the AFC is very, very set, all except for the 1 seed. Chiefs are 15-1. They have a 2-game lead on the 2 seed Bills, who are 13-3. The Bills have a 2-game lead on the Ravens, who are the 3 seed at 11-5. And they have a 2-game lead on the 4 seed Houston Texans. So none of these top 4 teams are moving, right? So those are locked in. So where all the magic is happening is in these wild card spots. We have the Steelers and Chargers tied essentially at 10-6. Right now, the Steelers have the advantage and are the 5 seed. But as I explained, depending on who wins and loses out of these two teams this week, that could flip. Now, as the 7 seed, right now the Broncos hold it at 9-7, but the two teams behind them, the Dolphins at 8-8 and the Bengals at 8-8, obviously, if they win and the Broncos lose, then I believe that they will get in. Dolphins and Bengals win and the Broncos win, I believe the Dolphins get in because they have a higher percentage chance to win. I don't know what the tiebreaker is, but like I said, they got a higher percentage chance to win, so I'm just assuming if they both win, then yeah, they're going to make it in. But for the sake of the playoffs, I hope the Bengals personally win because I think they're a more competitive team. They have a better chance of knocking out the Chiefs, so there's that. And as I also mentioned, I do think the Broncos are going to win. I think the Steelers are going to lose, and I think the Chargers are going to win. So if that all happens, then the AFC playoff picture would look like 1 seed Chiefs, the Bills would play the Broncos, the Steelers would be the 6th seed, and they would play the Ravens, and then you would have Chargers Texans as the 4-5. So that would be your AFC playoff picture according to Scooter's Week 18 score predictions. Moving on to the NFC, this is also locked in. As we mentioned, for the 1 seed, this is going to be the Lions or the Vikings. One of them are going to be 15-2. What an incredible season it's going to be for both of them, but whoever gets that 1 seed especially. As the 2 seed, we have the Eagles. Like I said, they're resting their starters. They can't get jumped. They can't jump anyone. So they're going to probably finish 13-4, or they're going to finish 14-3, and they will remain the 2 seed. And they'll play whoever the 7 seed ends up being. The 3 seed is the Rams, resting their starters. They can't lose the drafts or the playoff spot. And then the 4 seed right now is currently the Buccaneers. They have the 1-game lead on the Falcons. Like I said, if the Bucs lose and the Falcons win, then the Falcons will get in there. Apparently, there's a 15% chance of that happening. Maybe there's some other tiebreaker stuff that needs to happen, but to my understanding, that's all that needs to happen is the Falcons need to win and the Bucs need to lose. Now, as for the wild card, 5 seed is going to be the Vikings or the Lions. The magic is happening with the Commanders and the Packers. Commanders currently hold the 6th seed at 11-5, and the Packers hold the 7th seed at 11-5. I've never seen an 11-win team get so punished. How are you have 11 wins and you're the 7th seed? It's just crazy. But anyway, if the Packers win, the Commanders lose, the Packers will become the 6th seed. If the Commanders win and the Packers win, then they will keep it. Now, according to my predictions, I have the Lions winning, so they'd get the 1 seed. The Eagles winning, they'll stay at 2. The Rams losing, they'll still stay at 3. I have the Buccaneers winning, so they'll be 4. The wild card will be Vikings. Commanders I have winning, and Packers I have winning, so it would be Vikings, Commanders, Packers. Your NFC playoff matchup would be Eagles, or Packers at Eagles. Rams at home against the Commanders. And then you would have Vikings at Buccaneers. So very interesting playoff matchup. I guess I'll just give you guys a take for each of those real quick. Actually, no, I'm going to save that. You got to stay tuned to next week if you want to see that. But yeah, there you go. There's your playoff predictions based on the score predictions I'm giving you guys for Week 18. And I would say that just about covers it. Thank you guys so much. Whether this is your first score predictions video that you've watched of mine this season, or if you've watched every single one, thank you so much for supporting the channel. Thank you for leaving comments with your thoughts. I love responding to you guys, going back and forth, or if we just both really like something, expressing how much we both enjoy the same thing. It's just awesome. Doing YouTube has been an incredible experience. Did I ever tell you how much you guys mean to me? I mean, really, it's honestly so flattering that people would actually go out of their way to watch me talk about football. It's such an awesome thing. And I hope if this is something that you're interested in doing, that you don't let anything stop you from going ahead and trying. So please, if this is your first time, or if this is one of many videos of mine that you've seen, leave a like, support the channel. Let's continue growing so I can do better videos for you guys, and subscribe if you aren't already. Leave your thoughts in the comments and let me know what you think about my predictions for the playoffs and for the Week 18 games. And one more heads up, we are going to be having one last guest in the regular season. It will be a Giants fan who will be reacting with me to the Week 18 game versus the Eagles. So make sure you don't miss that, and make sure you stay tuned for the preview video that'll be coming out tomorrow. That's going to be all for this one, guys. Thank you once again so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.